Welcome back to the End of the Bench podcast. I got Jonathan Slaughter here with me again. We're going to talk to you about the Game 7s from today, and then break down the Heat and Raptors series, as well as the Warriors-Trailblazers series. The Heat and Raptors were both pretty convincing, at least the Raptors were, through three quarters tonight. In their Game 7 victories, the Heat were through all four. It was a pretty dominant performance from them. The Raptors almost turned into who we thought they were late in that game with a lot of turnovers and tried to give it away. But I was glad to see them get over the hump. What are your thoughts from those games?
I guess we'll start first with the Hornets Heat. I think kind of exactly what you said was going to happen happened. The Hornets, they look tired. They look like they didn't have the energy after. They realized that they missed an opportunity in Game 6 at home to close out the series. Heat mentally tough. And I think even with Bosch out, the Heat are, just a little more talented, especially given the injuries to Batum and Zeller, or as weird as that is to say. But I think, Dragic had his first really, really meaningful game. And he can do that every now and then. That's not something he's been capable of doing consistently, but his brilliance has shown in the past that he's definitely capable of having those types of games. Really, and it wasn't even much of a game just from the get-go. What do you think that the Heat are going to have to do to take down the Raptors in the next round?
Yeah, I agree with you on the Dragic thing. I thought since the Heat have decided to speed up their pace of play late in the season when the offenses really started clicking, that's helped him out a lot. He was not effective through the beginning of that series just because the pace was – the Hornets made it – he was effective in 1 and 2 because the Heat got out and going offensively. And then in these last two games, he's been able to kind of impose his will and get the game back to a little more up-tempo for the Heat, which has helped him a lot. And I think he's going to be one of the keys in the Heat-Raptors series. I think he's got to win the point guard battle. I was looking at stats from the regular season. The Raptors took 3 of 4, but they weren't really games you could look at because, two, but not in the last two. I think Wade sat out a game, Whiteside's out of a game, Dragic sat out of a game, so you really couldn't get a read. But DeRozan did play, I think, 3 or 4 or all 4 of the games. He was very effective, shot 48% from the field against the Heat, averaged 29 a game. So I think we'll see him struggle a little less. And Lowry struggled against the Heat, which is why I think Dragic is going to have to win that point guard battle pretty convincingly in a series that I think is going to get up and down the court and kind of open up for him to really give the Heat a chance to win. I think if Casey sticks with these lineups, they'll give themselves a better chance. It'll be fun to watch Patterson and Deng launching corner threes at each other back and forth down the court for the whole series. So I think the Raptors have a deeper bench. So if we see guys like Norman Powell, who didn't play until the end of the season and in these playoffs for the Raptors, make a difference, guys like Corey Joseph, I think their bench is a little deeper than Miami's, and that could help them maybe come out on top in the series.
Yeah, I think, the Raptors, the Heat seemed to, every game they won, they shot well, which seems like an obvious statement. But when they lost the games, they shot like 35%, 37%. And the games they won, they shot like 48%, 45%. And today I think they were like 51% or something crazy. But I think that's an imperative of Miami to win games because I think they need Deng to knock down those corner threes. They need Joe Johnson to be a good spot up option. They need Wade to be efficient and Dragic to get into the lane. So I think and the Raptors have one of the best defenses since the All-Star break. I think they were at one point allowing like 94 points per 100. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens, especially whenever the Heat try to speed it up. It was interesting today, I don't know if you felt the same way about watching the game, that it seemed like Wade, was almost kind of tired after that Game 6 and was more like letting Dragic kind of run the show. Because I feel like Wade's still uncomfortable whenever they're more of an up and down game. But today, he seemed just like let Dragic do his thing, and that obviously worked.
Yeah, it was for a while at the beginning of the season. They were better when, oh well, offensively at least, when Wade was out, and they kind of gave Dragic the keys and let them play that more up tempo style of basketball. But they're obviously going to need Wade in the next series. He's probably just tired from yelling at that green backpack fan for so much at the end of Game 6, more than the actual game itself. But I thought it's interesting you talk about them shooting the ball well, and that kind of coincides with when they can knock down three-pointers. They don't have great three-point shooters. Dang's serviceable. Joe Johnson is, when he's streaky, when he's hitting them, he's knocking them down. Same with Dragic. But Wade's a non-shooter. Gerald Green can get hot every now and then, but they don't have any great shooters. So when they can stretch defense and start knocking down some threes, then that really opens the lane up for them. Lets Wade go to work in the post, opens up Whiteside for some offensive rebounds on his pick and rolls and putbacks. And I think how well they shoot the three can go a long way in determining the series. But ultimately, I think if it had been the Pacers, I would have had no problem picking the Heat. I just think they had more talent from top to bottom. But I think hopefully, maybe I'm just buying into this. The Raptors are a different thing. Everybody's talking about it through the whole season, and then they win in Game 7. So maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid right now of the Raptors. I think they got a little more talent, and maybe Casey's learned something from this series, as well as the players with the win.
I think the Raptors
I like them in 5 or in 6. Sorry,
you like the Raptors in 6?
Yeah,
I like their matchup with the Heat better than I do with the Pacers, actually. You know, the Heat aren't a super great rebounding team. They have Whiteside, obviously, but outside of him, you know, Dang's not like a super great rebounder. Dragic doesn't really like to go in and get rebounds. You know, they don't really play any big guys off the bench. They've been playing, in fact, they played Josh McRoberts a lot in the last 3 games, and he's not a super great rebounder. So I think that Valanciunas and Patterson won't get taken advantage of as much as Valanciunas obviously is a great rebounder, and I think he can go toe-to-toe with rebounding with Whiteside, but Patterson is not a great rebounder. So I think the Pacers are a very good rebounding team, and I think that gave their small ball more trouble. I think it's going to be much easier for the Raptors to play small in this series. And, you know, I think that the matchups on the perimeter favor them a little better. Paul George is like a very hard cover, but I think Carroll can give Wade more problems than he did Paul George. I think Powell, he's kind of small for George, but I think he can match up with Wade as well. So I think those two things will be interesting. And then on the flip side, I think I wonder if they're going to exclusively put Winslow on DeRozan. And I think that'll be a fascinating matchup. And I would also like to see if, Terrence Ross only played 5 minutes and didn't play at all in the second half today. I wonder if Casey's going to keep that up, or, unless like the offense is bogged down, maybe Ross is a spark or something like that. But I think Powell has outplayed him in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the Winslow point is a good point. I think he's really the only guy they've got that's really got a shot. DeRozan. DeRozan's got some of that Wade post-up game with a little more height and a little more youth. So that will be very interesting. Do you like the Raptors or the Heat?
I think I still like the Heat, actually. I think I'm going to go Heat in 6. I think Spoelstra's just an underrated coach, and I kind of also want to see Cavs and Heat, because I feel like LeBron just doesn't play well against Wade for whatever reason. So I think that would be a fascinating conference finals. So I'll go Heat in 6.
Okay. I think we would be doing a disservice to Paul George if we didn't mention how brilliant he was in that series. He was dominant defensively against DeRozan, which is part of the reason I like the Raptors. I just don't think they have anybody that can match up with him the way Paul George is able to. And he carried that offense and gave his best for 7 games, and unfortunately he couldn't come up with it in the end. But he was brilliant in that series.
Probably the MVP of the first round.
Absolutely. No question.
So, all right. Well, on to the Portland Golden State series, and you got to go to the first game. So tell me a little about what you saw and what you think is going to happen going forward.
I think, and this is something that's strange to say because it's not something you think about, Bogut's going to be a problem in this series. They don't have a big man on the perimeter and take him away from the rim. So if the Warriors perimeter defenders can continue to give McCollum and Lillard limited airspace and keep them from getting off a bunch of 3 balls and force them to go to the rim, Bogut and also Draymond did a really good job of protecting the rim today. And then on the flip side of that, the Blazers don't really have anybody that's a great rim protector. Mason Plumlee's starting to figure it out. Ed Davis is an Energizer bunny. He bounces all over the place, but he's more of a rebounder. Not that they really needed it today because Klay Thompson was on fire. I think that's going to be another huge problem. McCollum and Lillard are not great defenders, so they're going to have trouble keeping up with Klay running off all those screens through the series, especially if he's shooting the ball as well as he did today.
Yeah, I think McCollum is actually a very poor matchup for Klay. Just with Klay's size, I think he can post up. And another thing where I think the Blazers are actually almost the worst matchup than the Rockets are, in the sense that the Rockets are actually pretty good at offensive rebounding, and you can kind of hinder some of Golden State's outlets that way. And the Blazers just don't have anyone that can do that kind of stuff. Ed Davis, like you said, maybe, but he only plays like 20 minutes a game. Plumlee's not crashing the boards. Aminu, he's hit or miss, not really a great offensive rebounder. I think that that can be one area where the Warriors will not get exploited. And, we could potentially just see 4 blowouts unless Dame does what he did back in March or whatever and goes off 45 points.
It'll be up to Dame or McCollum to have big games where they're knocking down jump shots in order to really give them a chance to win a game. I think they'll get one in Portland, maybe not, but there's no way this series goes more than 5, just for the reasons I mentioned. Damian Lillard was super frustrated with Bogut and Draymond's verticality. He got more calls toward the end of the third quarter, late in the fourth quarter. I think he worked on the officials enough. Up and down the floor, he was chattering at him a lot every time he didn't get a call, and he started to get more toward the end of the game. But he was getting frustrated. He was having trouble finishing around the rim, and there's a lot of big guys. Varejao, that was very Bush League. I got to say something about that because that was just a really awful play. I don't know if you saw
the leg sweep. Yeah.
The leg sweep, yeah, it was like a Cobra Kai move. He was sweeping the leg. I would suspend him for a game. That was pretty blatant and obvious if I was the NBA. But I don't even know. That's the only part of the Warriors playoffs that's bothered me so far is Steve Kerr's not really treating it like it's the playoffs yet with his rotation choices. In my opinion, he's playing guys like Varejao when you've got Spates who didn't play a lot of minutes. It isn't a bad matchup in the series, and Festus Ezeli didn't even see the floor, and as far as I know, he's 100% healthy. I don't know if he's going for an Anderson Varejao revenge game after the day cut after the Blazers picked him up, but after the Blazers traded for him, excuse me. Yeah, his rotations have been interesting. I assume he'll button it down whenever they see. And now I'm convinced that they're going to see the Spurs in the next round after yesterday. I regret my Thunder in 7 pick after that performance yesterday. We'll talk about that later. Anything else you see in this series that might be interesting to watch?
One thing I would be interested in is I'm not as concerned about Kerr's rotations as you are. I mean, I do think they're a little weird, but the Blazers really like bigs anyway, and so I don't really think bigs are going to have a huge place. I mean, I think there's only going to be about 20 minutes of sub big time basically behind Bogut. So I don't, you split those minutes between Spates and Varejao or, Ezeli. Ezeli's in the doghouse, I guess.
For some reason, I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, he did a couple dumb things and took a couple crazy shots, I guess, like in game 3 of the Rockets series. But I mean, it's weird that he's been overly harsh when I haven't really seen that from him yet. This is the first time I can really imagine a player being in the doghouse on that team. But I do one thing I think is interesting that I think Stotts will have to do, and I think he will do eventually at some point, maybe not next game, but the game after, is I think he's going to have to start playing Harkless less and really give more minutes to Crabbe and to Gerald Henderson, who both were positives off the bench. Crabbe is really, turned into a nice player this year. Could his second half, if he played like that the entire year, could be most improved, player worthy. So I think that'll be an interesting dynamic, because I think Harkless played 28 minutes, was 4-12, and was a -20. Crabbe was 6 of 9 for 15 and a +2. Gerald Henderson was 2 of 3 with 5 points and a +2. So I think both those players need to play more in the series. And unfortunately, because I liked Harkless coming out of college, but he's just not a starter quality for a series like this.
Yeah, I agree with you there. putting Harkless and Aminu out there, it was interesting. They put Bogut on one of those guys and let Draymond guard Plumlee so he could guard the pick and rolls. He's proven that he can guard guys at least in short spurts like Dame and McCollum out on the perimeter. So that helps the Warriors a lot. And then they can hide, play Bogut 15 feet off Aminu. He's going to hit one, but he might not hit any more than that. And he's going to take 8 of them because of just the way teams have been defending him. They're playing him exactly the way the Clippers did. He obviously didn't shoot the ball well, neither did Harkless. So it'd be interesting to see if Stotts maybe started Henderson and Crabbe at some point, not just taking away minutes. So there was a point today where the tallest player on the floor was Sean Livingston. They went small ball unit versus small ball unit. So I think that'll be a lot of fun to watch because if games get tight in this series, those will be your crunch time minutes lineups. Nobody taller than 6'8" out on the floor. And I don't know if it's really the way basketball's going or the evolution or anything like that, but it's definitely fun to watch when it happens when you got 10 guys out there that are elitely skilled compared to what you usually have.
I just think that's what these teams are. I mean, I personally think that you should play Ed Davis out there with Draymond because I think he's quick enough, especially without Steph. He's quick enough to stay out there on Livingston. But maybe I would probably not start Harkless either. I mean, there's no reason, especially if you're not going to use him to guard Clay. His best asset is his length, and Barnes has had a terrible playoffs, and that didn't change yesterday. I
was wondering why Stotts maybe didn't try McCollum on Barnes and just kind of let him handle. I mean, I think you assume maybe they'll try and punish you in the post, but I'd rather take my chances with Harrison Barnes in the post than Clay coming off threes and knocking him down without length in his face of Harkless or somebody like that.
Absolutely. So I think, if you're not going to use Harkless on Clay, he's kind of lost in this series. So I think that Crabbe and Henderson are going to have to play more. And, Henderson's not actually a bad offensive rebounder for his size. So it could provide some interesting dynamic there. But, this series is going to be I think it'll be a sweep. I'd be surprised if the Trailblazers got one. What about you?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think maybe we see one Damian Lillard eruption, I think it'll be one of the games in Portland. We'll just see him go for 40, 45, and that might be enough to get him one. It'll at least keep him close in that game.
It's a cruel joke.
I'm interested.
I said it's a cruel joke that we don't get to see full Warriors versus full Clippers in this series.
Yeah, that would have been fun to watch just because people think the Warriors own the Clippers because they beat them 8 straight times or something like that, but they haven't beat them by more than 7 this year, even full strength for both teams or without Blake Griffin. So it would have been a fun series to watch. I think the only question mark in the series is Curry said today he's optimistic. He's pretty sure he'll play in Game 3. I don't know. I'd play him in Game 3 unless you happen to lose Game 2, but I would try and get him out there by 4 because you don't want him going in cold when the Spurs have the guns blazing the way they do right now against the Thunder. That'll really set him back. You like to at least get something for him, 20, 25 minutes, and get him some game action before they go to the next round against the Spurs.
I think I would definitely have him play Game 4 or even play Game 3. Maybe he only plays 20 minutes or something, but just to have him out there and just to get the conditioning back, because I think one of the crazy things about Curry is that he's so his conditioning is so well to shoot those long jumpers late in games and have his legs there. So I think he really needs to have that because he's just not nearly as effective whenever he's just not able to hit those type of shots, or at least there was a reason that the Rockets were in it in the first half of Game 4 because Curry just couldn't hit it, and I think they were giving him the shot, but they were being more lenient with him.
You don't have to chase him,
right? They weren't chasing him as tough.
It extends your defense because you have to at least respect it, but it doesn't break it the way it is when he's hitting 3 or 4 of those in a row or something like that. Absolutely.
Exactly. So I think I think the thing to look for in both Western Conference series is that both teams stay healthy. I think that's what we want.
One team gets completely healthy, and then one team stays healthy, so we finally get a full strength matchup in the Western Conference. Well, I guess we're getting one with the Spurs and Thunder as much as it didn't look like it was full strength yesterday. It should be fun, hopefully, to watch these series, especially the Heat and the Raptors. I think that's probably the most evenly matched series. Has the potential to go the longest of any of these. So we should get a treat there.
Yeah, and yeah, and I guess maybe we'll be back in the middle of the series to dissect them, or if not, and if they're quick series, we might just have another conference final preview.
Yeah, I think maybe in a couple of weeks we'll be back here, and if the series are still going, we'll do a little bit of dissection of what's been going on, and if they are quick, if they're done in 2 weeks, we'll do a preview before we get into the conference finals.
Perfect. All right, man.
All right, sounds good.